Welcome everyone to another episode of Around the Block Talk. Today we have with us Mr. Shitij Malik. He is the head of growth at Interact, where they're working on solving certain problems on how we can build better Web3 communities. So very welcome to the show, Shitij. Excited and happy to have you with us.
Likewise, likewise. Thanks a lot, Pratik, for having me here. It sounds great and looks great when a lot of Web3 discussions are having these days across so many channels. At the same time, it opens scope for more productive discussions and for the Web2 Janta to actually go ahead and get exposure to what Web3 is all about, right? So before we take this discussion forward, let me first introduce myself. I've been a Web3 enthusiast for quite some time now. I have played around with a couple of things, tried to build around with a couple of things. After IIT Delhi, after my graduation, I directly joined the Web3 startup. That's why, because of my enthusiasm, the name of the startup is Intract, where me and my team, all IIT alums, are working on this. I am head of growth and partnerships. My major work over here is to define strategies for everything across the board, from fundraising, GTM to everything, and drive collaborations for Interact and partnerships and see how to expand our user base at the same time, go ahead and make it more user friendly at the end. Before I go into the details of what we're doing, let's first understand the way we look at, our company looks at how communities and Web3 as a whole exist as of now, because that becomes one of the core foundations of what this discussion is going to be about, right? So after talking to multiple founders, multiple community managers, multiple communities, stakeholders, etc., we have realized that majority of them face a lot of problems in terms of chaos. Why do I say the word chaos here, right? Majority of the people that we see right now in communities, in terms of stakeholders, they work in an unstructured manner. Why do they work in an unstructured manner? Because community managers, founders, businesses are not able to understand their members or their customers to an extent that happens in Web2 as of now. Even if that not extent, even that extent is not something which is required, still to an extent they're not able to truly understand what customer they're dealing with, what member they're dealing with, what are their communities preferring, which community is active, which community member is active, which is not. They're not able to create the differentiation between, say, an active contributor and a lurker. The people who are getting whitelisted are wrong. As you know, majority of the people that exist right now in communities on Discord, on across all data platforms, all social platforms, are bots or scams. So you're not able to differentiate between them properly because you don't have that level of insight, just because of how the unstructured world of Web3 looks, right? Because it's still evolving, right? Let me give you a few use cases to explain this to you, right? We have around 20 plus clients right now. All of them are across different horizontals: GameFi, NFT, DeFi, and DAOs. After talking to them, we understood what they're facing as a problem. GameFi and NFTs face a big problem of whitelisting, of bots and scams in their whitelist, hence having lower floor price and hence not being able to reward the best active contributors. For example, NFT has a typical problem of not being able to segment or give exclusive benefits to, say, certain NFT token holders, just because they don't have that feature which allows them to properly segment and then map it on Discord accordingly on their communities. For DeFis, they want to actually know what is the on-chain activity of, say, a member, and then accordingly have exclusive benefits on their communities for them, which is something that is still not easily accessible to them, and they're not able to do it right now. Hence, they're not able to derive maximum utility out of their businesses at the end of the day. DAOs want to know who are active engagers at the end of the day, which people actively contribute, which people have an incentive to be socially active, at the same time be actively involved in working on the DAO's vision. They're not able to do that just because they're not able to create that or understand that level of fragmentation and not able to get detailed analytics or insights about the same. Hence, it becomes very important to have some sort of linkage between the off-chain and the on-chain identity of a person. For example, I might have an on-chain identity where I have a MetaMask wallet where I exist on-chain doing something, but at the same time, I have an identity on Discord or Twitter where I'm actively opening up around about my perspectives on Web3 and about my activity on community as a whole. So I think Right now, there is no way to link both of them, and there is no way to understand both of them together. Majority of the companies that are coming around and trying to figure out solutions in this space are majorly in the on-chain space. There's no analytics layer that is properly established both on the off-chain and the on-chain linkage part. The surprising part over here, Pratik, if you're here, is this that majority of the founders that we've talked to are really trying to do this. So they found that there is a need to understand their consumers or their members more, but they have no way to do it. So the jugaad that they're doing is basically trying to do it on Excel sheets. So they have members on Excel, they have social engagement campaigns on their Discord or the Twitter where they ask them to link their wallets. They manually map both social IDs and say the Discord IDs and the say wallet IDs, and eventually they try to have some kind of input on a score allocation of how active they are. So they're doing something, but the process that they're doing is very manual and cumbersome right now because every founder, to maximize utility from their business, wants more information about who they're dealing with, which is not accessible to them right now. So that's one of the major problems that we've identified, right? So in a single line, the lack of infrastructure to consolidate a large amount of fragmentation or types of stakeholders in Web3, considering how fragmented it is what leads to unstructured approaches of functioning by businesses. This is one of the crux that I want to talk about. If you have any questions on the same, we can discuss this. Otherwise, I can move forward.
Sure. So I think essentially you're helping these founders or these Web3 companies to have a go-to market and find their first customer base. Is it that is what you're?
So I think maybe this will not help them establish what their first customer is, but this will help them establish that what they're doing on their communities or on their business model, what reciprocates or what is more vibey for the communities that exist. For example, if I do some kind of a social engagement campaign, I want to see the results of it. And that is something that will come up in our action layer later on, where we'll be able to analyze how many people actively participated and what is their level of contribution. So I'll go to what exactly we're doing in a couple of seconds. Let's first delve into the problem a bit more and see how things exist in the current infrastructure. So Web3 companies don't have the data infrastructure to understand who their users are. That was the problem that we addressed. But why is that?
So Shitij, if I can expand my question, I think you'll be able to better explain. So in a sense, so everything in Web3 is quite new. And so most of the users would be early adopters.
Yeah.
So I think the challenge over here is to find the right early adopters, both in order to understand what product to build, what the users are looking for, and also then to onboard some of these users. So one of the channels, as you mentioned, would be these Web3 communities. So are there other channels as well where we can find these early adopters, and what is your decision criteria behind helping these founders, particularly with the communities?
Sure. So I think at this point of time in our beta launch, we've been primarily focusing on Discord communities, because as what we've realized is, from any Web3 company to exist, communities become an integral part of it, right? And majority of them are hosted on Discord right now. There are other channels as well, say Twitter, say Telegram, and other stakeholders as well, say smart contracts, say off-chain identities, or on-chain wallets as a data set, which can be reviewed by certain businesses, which might not be any community, but just a set of data sets. So all of them are channels, or all of them are sources for clients for us eventually. It's not just Discord, it's anywhere where you have a good amount of data for customers and you want to go ahead and manage that or get insights from that. So there are two levels of layers that will eventually come with. One is the analytics layer, which is there in our beta launch, where you can go ahead and absolutely understand what sort of members or what sort of user base you're targeting. And you can get insights in terms of user attributes, in terms of wallet attributes, in terms of off-chain, on-chain, any level of analytics that you want. You can whitelist accordingly, you can blacklist accordingly. You can see which are bots, which are scams, by putting some kind of filters, and accordingly give them access to certain tokens, certain NFTs, etc. At the same time, the other layer, which is more ambitious in that sense, is the action layer, where you can go ahead and utilize our platform as a one-stop solution for social engagement campaigns, for marketing, for rewards, for everything, right? Airdrops, quests is what we call our social engagement campaigns. So all in all, that gives you one-stop solution for, say, have managing all your communities in a single space itself. Yeah. So I think what I was talking about, if you have any more questions, we can discuss it. Otherwise, I can go back and discussing the three problems that we found in the infrastructure of Web3 as of now. Cool. I'll go ahead. Yeah. You're on mute. Sorry, Pratik. I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So one curiosity that I still would have is, so you chose Discord as the platform. So do you think Discord is the best platform for finding early adopters? And should it not be, like, even with Discord, the audience is quite niche. Not everyone would have a Discord. So do you think there are other platforms where we can find these early adopters, or is it better to go with Discord?
I think from the analysis and the market analysis that we did before we chose to go for Discord, was simply resting on the fact that anyone who's in Web3 or anyone who's active in Web3 or has an understanding of Web3 has a link to Discord. They're either majorly on Discord or Twitter, which were the major channels. Telegram was also something that was under consideration at that point of time. But for our initial protocols to work and for our beta model to work easily in terms of not a lot of investment going in to be able to set that kind of platform up, and at the same time being able to find a good chunk of adopters and users of Web3, we felt Discord was the best way to start with. Twitter and Telegram are in the pipeline in our alpha version, and then accordingly we'll integrate other sources as well, and as and when they come. I think for us, our starting point is identifying the way to go ahead. The moment we've identified our niche and identified the problem and made other people realize that it is a problem and we are a solution, that is when it becomes very easier for us to percolate on other platforms as well. Because then it's just a lot of tech play in work, which allows us to say diversify on other platforms and accordingly gain a lot of population as well, a lot of customers as well.
Sure, understood. We can proceed.
Yeah, so I think talking about the Web3 infrastructure, I think is where I was at. Yeah, I think there are three levels of problems that Web3 companies right now face when they're, say, trying to have that data infrastructure to get some structuredness in their lives, right? First, Web3 have various amount of different stakeholders, right? From project customers, token holders, contributors, lurkers, community members. All of them are different and they're customizable to that kind of use case that they have. Second is the data fragmentation is very, very strong. As we just talked about, this data fragmentation across different channels is very vast. There are people on-chain wallets. There are people who had Discord. There are smart contracts. There's Twitter, Telegram, across different channels, and they're functioning across different channels because of the low level of consolidation or unification that exists in Web3 right now. Just because it's an evolving technology that is coming up in the coming few years. Third problem that we identified from a competitor front was that existing tools offer very limited analysis. For example, Dune Analytics, Discord Survey Insights, or say maybe Collabland, they try to do certain pieces of that level of analytics where we come in as give as a one-stop solution with a more secure level of analysis at that point of time. I think that is what how we differentiate ourselves from existing tools, and that is what becomes a problem for a lot of communities, a lot of stakeholders when they see when they try to use these particular softwares, because they only do part of the job, not the complete job. So as a result, Web3 companies are unable to segment users and take targeted actions. So what are targeted actions? This is what I think I tried to explain earlier as well. We're trying to, the target actions could be qualifying as whitelists, which would be a part of our action layer, rewarding through airdrops, which will again be a part of our action layer, communication, analytics, insight-driven analytics, insight-driven segmentation. All of that are targeted actions which will allow you to understand your consumer more, at the same time do actions for them, which makes their and your life easier as a founder. So eventually we're a B2B Web3 SaaS company, which allows you to go ahead and solve problems for other companies. This allows us for businesses to not lose out opportunities and better connect with their members, and at the same time maximize the utility for their businesses is the fundamental idea, right? So I think one of the major things that we've realized is that at the end of the day, the crux is that Web3 companies don't understand who their users are. They have identified the need that they want to, but they don't have any solution because from which they're able to go ahead and have that information of the various stakeholders that they manage. From an on-chain wallet behavior point of view, from a smart contract point of view, from a Discord and off-chain channels point of view. So if that unification happens on a certain product or a certain way, that is when you have more tangible insights and more tangible opportunities or ways to create more opportunities from your business, or you maximize the utility from your business. And that is where our product comes in, or our startup comes in. And now I'll establish some context about what Intract does, which I did earlier as well, but in a brief single liner. Intract is a stakeholder data platform for Web3. It is sort of the equivalent of CDPs from Web2. It helps Web3 companies better understand and segment their stakeholders, streamline analytics, and eventually execute marketing and reward campaigns. In simple words, it allows us to be the clear tap or HubSpot that exists in Web2 companies for now, which allows them to target employees, manage clients, manage customers, do talent management, etc., etc. Eventually, for Web3 services as well, is what our aim for is what our aim is in this domain. If you have any questions, we can answer that, Pratik, and otherwise you can I think move forward on understanding other aspects of the product.
Right, indeed. So, definitely that's a big problem in the market today, finding your customers, because again, being a new technology and being a very new space, people are not educated about this, the audience. They don't know they need it yet. So that becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So, right. So you mentioned that you are able to you segment basically these users for the company. So what is your criteria for segmentation basically? How do you decide how to do that? Yeah.
Fair. Let's take an example, right? For example, I am a gaming founder, and Intract comes to me and asks me to implement their platform and link it with their Discord server. And say I have, say, 1 lakh members on my Discord, and that is my community as a whole, which exists as a gaming guild sort of. Now, what I get from Intract as a founder is that now I have multiple options to link a lot of data sources on Intract. So I will be utilizing Intract. I will pull data sources, for example, Discord. If I have a Discord of that guild, say if I have Twitter, say if I have Telegram, I link it all on the Intract platform. Now I have now I have the data of all members on my Intract platform, and I can, in a single view, see all the Discord IDs over there itself. The moment I have that data source linked from Discord to Intract, I can see it in a single glance on my screen, and I have the social activity mapping. So I know the messages that they're doing, how much active they are, how many replies they do, how many messages they have done, are they happy, what is the sentiment analysis. There's sort of a report section on Interact as well, which allows you to measure the overall happiness of your community and get an overall overview of different consumers. Simple instance, just from an off-chain perspective right now, I have say 1 lakh members. Now I want to give some kind of a exclusive token, which gives this gaming guild exclusive rights or exclusive weapons in a game. But I only want the exclusive members or people who are very, very active on my Discord to get that kind of access. So what I do is put a filter of the top 1% or top 10% of that guild, which will be measured on various metrics. Right now, it is measured on replies, messages, reactions, etc., etc. There can be other metrics that are coming into play, which can be wallet activity, on-chain activity, how active they are, how many hours they spend on the game, etc., etc., which is down in the pipeline as we go ahead in our alpha launch. But right now, it is based on maybe messages in specific, and I get that data. I get the top 10% of that 1 lakh consumers. Say I get 10,000 over here, and 10,000 members to list now I have. I can automatically allocate them some role on Discord via my platform itself, and they can now gain access to some particular channel or some particular token which I can allocate, because now it is a completely new segment. So when we say that it allows you to understand your users more, it is not technically that the first user that you're getting will now be able to easily onboard, or you'll be able to easily understand your consumer in the wide market. In the communities that exist already, or in the clients that you already have, or the members that you already have, you'll be able to get a better sense of what they're doing, and you'll be able to accordingly go ahead and understand the insights from our platform more. Simple instance from a gaming point of view itself. I want to understand who are bots or who are lurkers who have no activity, and I don't want to give them any NFTs or any rewards for them being in the community. So I can automatically make a separate segment of them out, and make sure when I'm doing some kind of airdrops later on, my airdrops or my NFTs or my rewards don't go to the wrong people. Because the moment it goes to the wrong people, then there is no utility in being an active contributor. And that is what we sort of fulfill via our platform, because it is a one-stop solution for everyone. This was the off-chain perspective. Let's go from the on-chain perspective. For example, if I'm a DeFi investor and Intract comes to me, a DeFi platform and Intract comes to me, and I have a community of people where they're talking about which investments are the best, I can easily go ahead and review their on-chain analytics and see how many trades they do, how many matics do they hold, how many tokens do they hold, which tokens do they hold. For example, governance token is one of the tokens where you can give access to some governance channel where they want to talk about certain things. So if they have that token, that is when they get that role or that access to that channel, which is something that you can directly control from our product. So all of them are use cases. And why they become use cases for our product? Because these are things that are being done right now. Community managers, founders are doing this right now, but in a very, very manual way, or in a very, very cumbersome way, which does not allow them to fast track things. So the moment you integrate it with our platform, you'll be able to easily handle your existing clients, existing customers, existing user base, etc. Just because you now have all of their access in a single platform, and now you have established metrics to segment them and get detailed insights. On-chain analytics, you'll get access on Matix token, how many transactions they have done, whether they're active in making on-chain transactions, and then accordingly you can classify them as, say, active investors or not active investors, and accordingly make that kind of segmentation. And one of the major use cases for DeFi is that you can sort of give them access to exclusive channels where they're getting detailed insight, where the like-minded people are able to have that discussion in the community, thereby making their community more better. Because that is because majority of the people feel that joining a Bitcoin guild or DeFi community is a waste of time, just because there is a lot of spam coming in. A lot of people talk bullshit. A lot of people don't do targeted discussions on what they want. So it's sort of not adding any productive utility to the consumer who's an active investor. But now when you get that level of exclusiveness, when you get a level of segmentation, where we get that level of ability to understand who's an active investor and who's a lurker, that is when your community itself prospers. Yeah.
Right, understood. So you're essentially performing certain analytics for,
Correct.
and then on the basis of that, segmenting. So also that you mentioned that you are kind of combining their identities across the system. So their wallet activity, their activity on Discord, and also their real world identity to some extent. So how do you actually ensure that these are properly connected, especially if you have these millions of users? How do you make sure that all these identities work together?
Fair. So I'll answer this question by firstly establishing some context of anonymity, data autonomy, and say consent, because that sort of forms the fundamental of this answer. So from my perspective in specific, this is my personal view, Web2 exists on one end of the spectrum and Web3 exists on the other end. Right now, both of these exist in isolation because coexistence is something that hasn't been really evolved yet, because both of Web3 is an evolving space. In Web2 domain, Google, Facebook, Instagram, etc., they have their ways of taking data from us. So the question is, why did data autonomy or consent even spark up? Why did it become something that people really cared about? Why did anonymity become something that they care about? So in the Web2 domain, when Google asks me, or when any particular big tech company asks me whether I can take your data, the quid pro quo transaction that happens is that they take my data and they give me additional benefits in terms of, say, customized content, easy search results, better features, etc. So there is some level of transaction that happens, but the problem is that it is the data autonomy that I've given to the big tech companies. After that, I have no consent. I have no data autonomy on how that data is going to be used, where they sell it, what they do with it. I have no control over it. So lack of autonomy in the Web2 model is what sparked the evolution for Web3. Over here, people can have autonomy, people can have consent, people can choose whether they want to give data or not, and they can accordingly get rewards for it. So the funny part is, since the incentive structure for giving data autonomy is something that exists in Web3, 99% of the users are primarily driven by them getting rewards or incentives or NFTs or Matics, whatever, for the data sharing that they do. 1% is actually the people who actually believe in the philosophy of it. But that doesn't matter. People are more happy because now they have more autonomy and autonomy over the data, and they have the power to exercise consent, which they did not earlier. That is what actually like drives me about Web3, that people now have more power. So at that point of time, where our product lies is on the idea of this. We feel that we are the gap or the bridge that acts between both these spectrums. We start by this way so that people can try and utilize Web3 more, and accordingly work in this direction, in the direction of Web3, so that people can go ahead and actually unlock the potential of decentralization. We all as a team at Intract believe that Web2 and Web3 will eventually coexist. It is not possible for Web3 to completely take over, at least in a couple of years now, or Web2 to completely take over Web3. This coexistence needs to happen. Hence, there is a gap in the middle or a bridge that is required for people to go ahead and link both identities, because that is when consumers will get the benefits of being more getting the benefits that they got in Web2, at the same time then getting the benefits of Web3, which is rewards. Our structure works along this fundamental itself. The way we do it, the way since you asked me the question of linking, the way we do it is this. Community managers, founders, stakeholders can go ahead and pull their data from Discord communities, Twitter, Telegram on our platform. We then have all the Discord IDs or any IDs across different platforms on our data. So we have the off-chain identity on that particular on our particular platform. Now we can launch some campaigns, or we can launch some ways to go ahead and actively ask consumers or members of that community to link their wallets if they want to. So the consent part of whether they want to link their wallets and get some rewards as a trade-off of it still exists over here. At the same time, them getting their wallets linked to that particular off-chain identity, which is the Discord identity that exists on our platform, will allow founders to be able to understand them a bit more and get the kind of benefits that they are right now in the chaotic structure not getting. So it's sort of an automatic structure, an automatic tech play, which allows you to get the off-chain data first, and then either your community manager or your founder can launch some campaigns, or we can launch it via automatically when the action there of a product is ready via our product itself. And they can members can automatically choose to link their wallets if they want to. If they don't, then it's absolutely fine. If they do, then sure, they can get those kind of rewards which might come with that particular scheme. And that is when you get benefits of both both Web2 and Web3. And that is where I think allows us to differentiate ourselves, because majority of the competitors that exist in the domain right now are majorly focused on on-chain analytics. They majorly focus on, say, which NFTs you hold, which type of NFTs you hold, which investments you hold, how to help you in that investments, what is your on-chain what is your on-chain activity, etc., etc. What we do is sort of act as the base layer for them to be built upon, or for us to build upon even more on the on-chain front. Till the time you don't have a strong base on the bottom, which is the need of the hour for majority of the founders to be able to work in a targeted and optimized manner, you won't be able to properly utilize or say get the maximum utility of the on-chain businesses that are existing. So that is, I think, that is where we sort of come in.
Right. So essentially incentivizing these customers to bridge, to kind of link their wallet and their offline.
This happens in the current world as well, right? Community managers have messages coming up people who react or give or fill this form will get X matrix. So they are doing it right now. They have Excel sheets where they maintain Discord IDs in parallel to the wallets of people who've consented for. But the process is cumbersome. So they already do it. So consent is something that is already there. So data autonomy is something which is already there in this particular case as well.
Indeed, indeed. So I think that is very true that there's actually more data available in the Web 2 today rather than the Web 3. So it makes a lot of sense to actually link them and kind of do an analytics on both the aspects.
Yeah. Yeah, I think let's talk about I think to like maybe contextualize these things even further. Let's see what our customers has, right? So we have around 20 plus customers on board. All of them are across all horizontals because the fundamental problem all of them face is the same, be it GameFi, be it DeFi, be it DAOs, or be it NFTs. All of them face the same fundamental problem. So our platform is right now being utilized. Our customers are across the board. They're not across all horizontals. The kind of reviews that we get from them, right? For example, NFTs and GameFi, they are now utilizing our platform, able to understand what is the on-chain activity of a person, how are they an active contributor, are they a lurker, do they even hold that NFT, which allows them to say get access to a particular more exclusive feature which they did not earlier. How are they even active on Discord, or are they just a person who say has some kind of money in their wallet, Matic in their wallet, and are just there in the community. So that sort of segmentation is something that stays common for both of them. So this is our customer reviews that after they've tried our product. Whitelisting via NFTs has become much easier because now they don't have to lower their floor price because they can do targeted airdrops, which they were not able to do earlier. And I think more importantly, from a DeFi and DAO perspective, I think they're able to go ahead, from what we've heard from our customers, is that they're able to go ahead and make active segmentation and understanding on the investor front because of on-chain, and at the same time contribution front because of the off-chain in both DeFi's and DAOs. And that is where I think they're able to maximize the utility, because DAOs don't want 1,000 people. They want 100 people, but quality people. And they want to reward those 100 people rather than rewarding those 1,000 people, because the utility of those 100 people then just reduces. I think that level of filtration, insights is required to be able to get a more tangible sense of what we're doing and how we're doing it. So yeah, this is sort of a contextualizing thing. I think I can talk about a more futuristic vision, considering we're all ambitious guys after all. What we're planning in the end is that we think that once we start picking up, hopefully we'll start picking up. We'll have a reputation system that we can further act on. Since we have we'll hopefully have a lot of communities on board, we can go ahead and have a reputation metric to understand which communities function better. We have a sort of a rating system. We have sort of rating which allows to measure the success of that community. Right now, you don't know which community is good or which community is bad. You hear it if you have good connects, if you have good friends, if you have good network. Acha, ye community mein ye chal raha hai. Come join here. You here have the link. So this sort of filtration, this sort of equal accessibility is something which Web3 is supposedly the epitome of, is not something which is there for everyone right now. Because people who are into Web3 for a long time have that level of network, but people who are not, they don't. So that sort of filtration is something which is there, and that sort of reputation system will allow people to be judged, communities to be judged, and community managers sort of to be judged as well. Eventually planning a token play as well, I think further down the line, where you can go ahead and have Intract tokens for some kind of rewards, and eventually see where and when to reward people for the activities that they do. So yeah, that's sort of the idea. Quick thing on our beta launch. We're planning our beta launch soon. In our beta launch, in our alpha launch, we want to go ahead and integrate the action there. And at the same time, we're giving a lot of early access promo codes to a lot of people, where they can go ahead and utilize our particular product for a X amount of time as early onboarders. And you can also easily access that via our site. I think that will be found in the description of this link itself. You can go ahead and log in on our site and accordingly access it. So the early X people will probably get this early access. So if you have any questions, I think you can address those.
Sure. So that's great to know the kind of product that you're building, and definitely something very much needed in the market. So probably in the right direction. And now coming to probably the technology that you're building for to enable this product. So I think even with the Web3 identity that we have today, there are multiple wallets, and it's still kind of all over the place, the identity and the
Correct.
system. So are you also heading in the direction of building an identity infrastructure for the entire this Web3 thing, or is that something you would be looking to? Do you think something that is needed? What is the views on an
I think
identity?
identity protocols are important, and I think they have been played on by a lot of players. Uh, in our future version of ourselves, probably when we're more established in that front, we can sort of look into it, and we can see if that's something that fits with the kind of fundamental we have. But the market is taking over. Identity protocol is something that a lot of people are feeling are important, and that market is getting crowded. So that sort of depends when, because that is not a fundamental idea. A fundamental idea rests on the analytics and the action layer front that I've talked about. So if that's something that we want to integrate later on and helps us drive analytics or action more in the future, then sort of that's something that we can integrate as well. So that's something that we can have to review later on. I think it's important. I think it's something that a lot of players are playing on these days, because obviously it's a chaos. It's a chaos of information. You need to have some level of establishment. So if you look at it from that point of view, identity protocol is something that we've sort of from the principal point of view already incorporated, because we've already linking the Web2 identity and the Web3 identity of a person, which allows you to sort of understand the consumer a bit more. So it sort of gives identity to the MetaMask wallet that you have. But yeah, I understand. I think not the proper protocol that you I think hinting at. That is something that we're not focusing on right now.
Sure, that's great to know. So, finally, what kind of technologies are you developing at this point to enable your product?
I think honestly, personally, not the technology person in the team. I have a CTO who's handling all this. But I think on the technology front right now, our product is ready. We have strong APIs and strong server sector ready to be able to manage that kind of information load that we have. We've been handling around 2 lakh plus members across 20 plus customers. So a robust system is in place. We have, I think, a product which allows you to be able to on the analytics layer front, being able to go ahead and execute everything that you want in terms of getting those kinds of insights. But at the same time, on the action layer front, we have a couple of things ready, which might be social engagement campaigns, which will be airdrops, Twitter integration, and Telegram are on the pipeline. So yeah, I think all in all, this is the overall perspective of how we're moving on the product front right now.
Okay, sure, Sujit. That was great to know. So with that, we can conclude our talk today.
Thanks a
And
lot for having
thank
me, Pratik.
yeah, thank you for your time
Thanks a lot.
and
Everyone do check
yeah,
out to check out our site in the description, and do have a look at the early access concept if you want to try this out.